The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio. Keep your mission on your mind and your mind on your mission. This is Mission Minded with Michael Coleman.
It is time once again for Mission Minded. It's a show about non-for-profits, about business, it's about organizational efficiency. It's about everything, man. And Michael Coleman is the man. Of course, Michael has been with non-for-profits pretty much his entire career. He's also been the CEO of the Jimmy Hill Mission, and now has just taken over the CEO position at the Montgomery Food Bank. They are responsible for 35 counties in the great state of Alabama. He joins us right now on Mission Minded, which, by the way, Mission Minded, I'm pretty sure, starting on Monday, goes 5 days a week. So Mission Minded will be on every single day of the week, starting at 10 a.m. right here on the TKR app on Tony Kurre Radio. And as always, if you want to go check out any of our previous shows, we've probably got 50 or 60 shows, Michael. You go check out Tony Kurre Podcast and find all those past episodes. First of all, how you doing, man? What's going on?
Doing great. I'm the kind of person, when I come into an organization, I just immerse myself in it, and so maybe the listeners know exactly what I feel like. And people have said, "Oh, Michael, you're going to burn yourself out right away." And I try to tell them, "Hey, I fully understand the importance of escaping, and at night I do. I disconnect from it completely. I veg out on Netflix or whatever. But man, 4:00 in the morning, my eyes pop open, and my mind is already spinning.
Yeah.
But it's a good thing. It's exciting to me. I don't have tons of hobbies. And so right now my hobby is getting to come in here and tinker with already a great organization, but to just make it better, because I know lives will be changed by that effort. And so it's not burdensome and all. It's a heavy lift, but it's not a burdensome lift.
Let's go right there. It's based off what you said. I got about 55 questions, and I know we want to get into some organizational efficiency and how we waste time and money and everything else. It's a little different than, say, I'm walking into a situation where I'm an employee and I have people that are my equals, and I'm working for somebody because they've hired me to come in and do a job, as opposed to someone in your position where you're actually overseeing or overviewing a lot of your own employees as a CEO. And so you do have to figure out ways. Obviously, going in as an employee, they've hired you for a purpose, and you have your role, and that doesn't seem very difficult. When you go into an organization, you just mentioned the Montgomery Food Bank, it's a great organization already. Are you one of those guys that likes to go into organizations that are broken and try to fix those things? Would you rather go into an organization that seems like it's pretty well run, or somewhere in the middle?
Well, it's hard for me to say, because there's good and bad in all of that. So if you go into an organization that really just from top to bottom needs a spring cleaning,
yeah,
from how it's structured to how it views its mission, it can be incredibly difficult, especially if the people a part of it, so your stakeholders, let's say your board of directors or even your employees, don't feel like it's going fine. And you may see things that are obvious to you, but I've experienced that at times, to where it's like, but I have to keep reminding myself, and I coach this to other people. You can't hold people to a standard of what you know. So I may have, for instance, an expertise based on my training or based on what I've had the privilege of being exposed to. And I'll just throw this out in the nonprofit world. Because you get into development and you start getting into strategy of it's not that you just have a social media presence. It's not that you just have a community relations presence, but the whole thing is about how do you create a synergy with all these, where they're all going towards a single goal or single purpose. And lots of times it's easy to come in if you've been exposed to something and a problem stands out to you, and it's like, oh, it's so obvious. And so then people have a tendency to look at the employees who are there and go, oh, well, you should have been doing a much better job, without understanding that lots of times we go into organizations and they've never been exposed to those things. So you can't expect people to know what they don't know. And And we even do that with clients in the nonprofit world. We get so frustrated sometimes with the people we serve and make judgments about people in need or people. And so we just say, oh, you should know better. You know, this is not right. You should have done this. And it's just real easy because we can come to those conclusions based on our education level or life experience or our situation that usually is vastly different than the people we're trying to help. So I want to encourage those out there that when you're going into an organization and you see some things that even, and sometimes it's not even, it's not that you just know it's not right. You may not even know how to put your finger on it. Maybe you don't have enough experience to know, but you just know, look, this just doesn't pass the smell test. It's not efficient. It's not very effective. There's got to be a different way. What's really important is to understand that change will never happen without the leader presenting a vision of not only why it needs to change, but where you're going. And so and lots of times people come into organizations and they're like, I'm the CEO, I'm going to do things my way.
Mm-hmm.
That should not be the criteria. The criteria should be, I see a better way, but it's not about me getting my way. It's about bringing all the stakeholders to the table and sharing your idea, but also being open to have your idea fine-tuned. So I'll give you a great example that I'm living in right now. So this past week, I pulled all my managers in. So I had about 8 people in the room and said, I don't have a clear from beginning to end, from somebody orders the food, even at a national level, how the shipments come in. I just don't have from the beginning. It's just not clear in my head. So first of all, I just whiteboarded it step by step. I said, like I'm explaining it to a first grader.
And did you really not know that, or were you just kind of testing them to see how it works?
No, but like I said, I know organizational structure.
Yeah.
In terms of efficiency and stuff. What I don't know, I'm still learning, are food bank specific things. So I brought them in and said, listen, I need to do this for myself. And I said, okay, so here's what I'm thinking. And you tell me where I'm not matching reality. So we drew it all out. They corrected me in a lot of different things. And then when it was all on the whiteboard and we were all looking at, even though I'm the brand new guy and they've been here sometimes over 20 years, and then we all looked at that board and said, that doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense because, and so we started talking about, not that you want to spend a lot of time on the how you got there, but I know exactly how they got there. Is you start with an organization. Let's say you started a homeless shelter, and you start with a staff of 10, and that 10, you have the CEO who 1 minute is cutting grass, the next minute he's fundraising, the next minute he's counseling. I mean, everybody is just jumping in to do the best that they can because they're passionate about the mission. But you start to grow, and you're like, oh, where our needs, we really need somebody to do this, but you don't have the money to hire a new person. So you'll have a good employee goes, okay, I'll take that. And then another employee says, well, I'll take this on. And so what ends up happening, you do that over the course of 5 years or so, and then you look back and your whole organizational structure doesn't make sense in terms of whose responsibility, because it's a bunch of good employees just taking on tasks because they care about the mission.
Yeah.
So that's what happens when you come in and you're like, this is crazy how we're organized. It doesn't make any sense. But it makes perfect sense to those because they understand how you got there. But when I laid it out on the whiteboard, we collectively said, I think it could be better. Let's now talk about how to make it better. And I said, I'm bringing something to the table, a strategic approach. You're bringing the knowledge specific to food bank operations, but together we streamlined the process. And then we started talking about, okay, now let's look at our organizational chart. Now that we have the processes streamlined, now let's talk about personnel. Do we need more personnel? Do we need less personnel? But we really couldn't get into that decision until we understood exactly what's the most effective and efficient way we can process food out of state into us and then into the hands of the recipients.
And see what I love what you do here, and I've done enough shows with you to realize that you will give everyone a chance, even if you get into an organization and realize I don't know why this person is here, which is kind of crazy because everyone's kissing the boss's butt when they're a brand new CEO. But
Yeah.
when you walk in, the fact you called all 8 of them into your office at one time, and you were basically a peer at that point, and you're whiteboarding the whole thing, you're giving everyone the opportunity to explain what their role is and why things are the way they are, and then you all fix it at the same time. I love that. Mission-minded, keeping your mind, your mission on your mind. We do the show. It's going to be airing every Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Right now it airs, of course, on Wednesdays here on the TKR app, and also find us on Spotify or anywhere you get your podcast. Just search Tony Kurre Radio Podcast and look up Mission Minded, and you can find it. John and Tarrant had a very interesting question here, not to deviate away from it, but we got plenty of time here. He wanted to know, what was the first thing you said to your staff the first day you met them?
Oh, very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So one of the things that I told them is just try to explain who I am. And so you kind of talk about core principles, and I said, I know that I'm going to tell you some things, and you're probably going to say every new guy comes in and says the same thing. And I said, and I get it. So, you may not be eye rolling in front of me, but in your heart, you're eye rolling. You're like, man, I've heard this 1,000 times. What I'm going to try to do this differently is I'm giving you permission to hold me accountable for what I tell you I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. So if I don't follow through with what I say, I'm giving everybody in this organization the authority or the ability to call me on the carpet about it. And I said, because so I'm going to tell you I'm going to do something. I'm going to operate in a transparent way. And if you ever see me not operate in a transparent way or something that's inconsistent with what I've told you, then I'm giving you my word. One of two things are going to happen. I'm going to take the time to sit down with you as long as it takes and explain to you the why, the what I'm doing and why, because it's coming across to you as that I'm being hypocritical or I'm not carrying through with what I said. And it may just appear that way, but once I explain to you the why, or I will change because you will have pointed out to me that I, in fact, told you one thing, but I'm doing something else. And so it's incumbent upon me to change. So I said, either I'm going to help you understand a better perspective of what's happening, or I'm going to change. So, and so I just said, look, the number one thing is I'm just going to share my values. My core values are we take care of clients. They're our number one priority, and managers and directors, you're going to take care of your employees. That's your number one priority. And my job is to lead this organization into excellence in everything we do. And then once we determine what excellence is, then I'm going to figure out how to do excellence the most effective and efficient way that I can. Now, and then I just delved off into that and tried to be as transparent and as I could. But I did, because I didn't want to, it was already enough for them to digest. I could have sat there and talked hours about how I feel about different things. But then I said, it's just very important. I mean, I'm saying this to myself now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's very important culturally that a new guy comes in and they'll make some changes and they'll snip around the edges or whatever. They might bring some new people in, move some other people out. And then, 6 months to a year, things settle back in again. And what I told them is, it's my job to make sure we never settle in. What I mean by that is that my job as CEO is to always have the vision out in front of us so that you are always challenged. But I will never ask you to do anything that I have not given you the necessary training, the necessary tools, and the next necessary ability to do that, to include pay and salary.
Yep.
And if I can't do those things, then I won't ask you to do it. And I said, but if you understand how to do it, because I've given you the training, if I've equipped you to do it because I've given you the tools, I'm giving you a fair salary, good benefits, I said, then I'm going to hold you to a high standard. And it doesn't mean I'm holding a high standard, or a standard of excellence does not mean perfection. I know you're going to mess things up, and it's okay. What I'm looking for is, I'm not looking for excuse makers. I'm looking for, hey, I screwed up, made a mistake, learned a lesson. I'm moving forward. I'm going to work real hard not to do that again.
Do you think Michael Coleman is an easy person to work for?
If you are,
I know that's a loaded question, but
no, I'll tell you.
And based on your answer, I'll tell you what kind of employee you need, because I think some employees, they want to work with someone super easy, but I think most people that want to get after it don't want a boss that's necessarily easy. They do want to be challenged every day.
Yeah, and so what I'm trying to do is I want to challenge them, but I think the worst thing we can do sometimes is put too much on somebody that it overwhelms them, because so I'm trying to kind of split that difference to say, I'm going to hold you to a high standard, but I can't hold you to that standard that I've not properly equipped you. So how I like to do is say, you're in charge. You're my director of operations. So I have this guy, Kurre Welch. He's been here 25 years. Kurre is a wonderful guy. He's very smart. Nobody knows our warehouse system like Kurre. And I called Kurre in and I said, I don't know how past bosses are doing, but here's what I'm telling you, is you and I will talk regularly. You will always have a seat at the table. I deeply value your knowledge and your understanding. I need you to teach me what excellence is in the food banking industry. I'm going to bring my own experience in terms of operational effectiveness. So I'll have some thoughts on some things, but the standard is going to be excellence. And you and I are going to come to terms in what excellence is. I'm not going to tell you what excellence is going to be. You and I are going to reach an agreement based on a conversation about what excellence is. So you will have buy-in, because you're going to help determine what excellence is. You're going to tell me the tools that you need. You're going to tell me the people you need. That's my job to fix. But once I give you all that, then I'm going to say, all right, Kurre, I've empowered you to be successful. Now, if you're not successful at that point, then that's a different conversation we need to have. And what Kurre has responded to is, what he's taken from this in my first 6 weeks is, all right, Michael, trust me. He's given me the ability to run my department interference-free. He is allowing me to make decisions about cost matters. So in other words, he feels like a valued employee, and he knows that if he makes a mistake, the expectation is he's going to come talk to me about it.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to try to hide it from me for fear he's going to lose his job. Because I said, you're never going to lose your job because you make one mistake. Now, of course, outside of theft or something obvious.
Sure.
But if you just come to me and say, hey, Michael, I think I screwed this up, my answer, it's not about getting rid of the person. It's about, okay, what did we learn? And Kurre, you made that mistake because we don't have a process for X, Y, or Z. So the lesson is not just that you made the mistake. The lesson is we've got to build a process that fixes that. And all we did is learn that great lesson. And yeah, there's always some consequences in terms of you make a mistake. It may cause damage to equipment or whatever, a couple thousand, you know what I'm saying? There's always something cost to it. But Kurre has way too much value to this organization. And I'm not going to hold him to an unrealistic expectation, but a high one. So he comes back and tells me all the time, he feels, even though I'm holding him to a high standard, he feels liberated because I've empowered him
That's great.
to run the department and make the decisions he needs to make to be successful. I'm not hamstrung him, held him to a high standard, and then said, "But you're going to do it my way."
No, and that sounds like a good relationship you already have with an employee that obviously has been there for 25 years for a reason. Michael Coleman, Mission Minded. Keep your mind, your mission, your mission, your mind. The show is going to start airing every Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Super easy to find us. The TKR app, download it. And thanks to the tens of thousands of folks who've already done that. And on top of that, of course, check us out wherever you get your podcast. Have you heard of the brand new shelter called Way Station?
A brand new shelter called Way Station.
Yeah, I've got a question, and this could be. I want to get into this again next weekend or next week. I think it's really interesting. There's a brand new shelter, youth homeless shelter for 18 to 24-year-olds. That's going to be opening up in Birmingham called Way Station. Stacy in Gulf Shores wanted to ask you what you thought of that. So maybe you can do a little research on that. It is going to allow men and women, the ages, I believe it's men and women, 18 to 24, only 18 to 24, up to 2 years of shelter to get them back on their feet. Evidently, there's been a 70% increase in homelessness in that age group for a lot of different reasons. First of all, because of inflation, because of COVID, but also because of the foster programs we have on our state. And once you're 17, 18 years old and you have not been adopted by a family, you're pretty much out in the street. Do you have any thoughts on that? Is that a need?
Oh, I'm telling you, I could do just off the top of my head, I could do enough for 6 shows here just on the top.
You want to make a whole show out of it next week? We could talk about it because
sure. Hey, I'll just hold my thoughts and.
So Stacy, make sure you're listening next week because we talked about this. When you're going to create a non-for-profit, what's your need? What are you doing differently? And when I heard this idea, anytime there's I think it's a $3.4 million facility that's going to be opening up in October. And I had so many questions because they can only take up to 20 people at a time. And the fact that it's 2 years seems like it's a long period of time, but it's also, but it sounds like a really cool idea. And also one roof. Are you aware of that agency?
I am. Yeah.
They provide care and services to people experiencing homelessness in Birmingham. So they're going to refer these young people to this organization. So kudos to them for getting this thing off the ground. And it looks super cool. I think that's awesome.
I'll definitely have a lot of thoughts on that.
Yeah, another email here from Jan and Opelika, and it kind of goes along with Kurre, your buddy. She said, do you look at the length of employment time based on who you want to look at first when you come into your organization? Are you one of those guys that wants to sit down individually with every single person and not so much tear them apart, but find out what they're all about? Or are you like, hey, listen, as long as you're doing your job, it's a good thing, I'm pretty good. But when you look at people, and I can say this because I was with Cumulus for 30 years and got fired. And listen, I had a hell of a run. 30 years in any organization, I was super blessed, and I'll take that anytime I got. But I think a lot of people were shocked because I was there for so long, and they thought, well, there's no way they're ever going to fire a 30-year-old veteran. It happens. Right. And I've seen people that, they're kind of going through the motions, that being challenged every single day. And I'll be the first one to say that I got complacent over a period of time. I could do radio in the middle of the night in my sleep and pull off a perfect show, but I wasn't doing more. I wasn't getting out and doing sales and promotions and the things I needed to do. And now I realize that. But when you look at tenure of employees, do you have a pecking order of who you want to maybe leverage more or lean on more?
No, what my approach with coming here was, it's got a long history, and we have a lot of employees who have been here for several years. And so I just started with the leadership and worked my way down. And obviously, people like Kurre who have been here over 25 years, you understand, we say it jokingly, those are the kind of people that know where all the bodies are.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of value. Regardless of what you think about the person, there's a lot of value in understanding how the organization got to where it is. And so, you think, even if it's, you got somebody you maybe didn't jive with personally, or maybe you didn't think that they had a great work ethic, but anybody's going to be in an organization, 10, 15 years, same organization, they're doing something right. And so lots of times, just over that time, just like you said, Tony, but it may happen to somebody 10 years in to where they see where improvements can be made, but they have not been allowed to sometimes even talk about those improvements for a whole host of reasons. You get into the psychology of it, why employees are not allowed to, because sometimes the boss doesn't want to feel fool with making changes. Sometimes the boss wants to hide the fact that he's got employees that are smarter than he is, so he doesn't want, so he just kind of suppresses change. There's a whole lot of reasons, but there's nothing more liberating than calling people in at all levels. And I have not literally called everybody in. What I did was I talked individually to every key leader, and then I've talked to the rest of them in groups. But my goal is over time that I want to have a one-on-one with everybody in the organization. Now, that's easy to do in the sense of, we only have about 40 people here. So over time. But I'm going to tell you something. Imagine if you work somewhere 10, 11 years and nobody asked your thoughts about anything. And now all of a sudden the CEO calls you in and says, tell me what's really great about this place, and tell me where, man, we are just really not doing things well. And when they tell you what's not, and you're going to get a whole lot more, here's what we don't do well than what we're doing right.
Yeah.
But when they do that, I've seen guys, just come to life. When I say guys, men and women, come to life when I go, okay, well, you've been here 10 years. You point out the problem. Give me your best solution to it. And I have sat here with an employee that's like 2 levels down, and I started whiteboarding their suggestions and walking it through with them. And they leave there on cloud 9 because they feel valued.
Yeah.
And so what you start to see is that their work performance, their productivity starts to improve, because now they're like, yeah, I do. Here's why I like my job. Hey, they're listening to me. I have value. What other improvements can I make to help the company? I'm telling. And then if you can create that across the organization to where everybody starts thinking about how do we do this better. And if I come up with it, that I have the freedom to email the CEO or drop by his office for a conversation. And yes, look, I've been in and out of my office the last couple of days. I left last night. I had 70 emails to answer. But if an employee comes and knocks on the door and says, I just really need to talk with you, that employee has to be more important than those 70 emails.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't matter if that employee takes 2 hours of my time and I get home at 7:30. And now I've got 90 emails to answer. You've got to do that, because that will pay off in the long term in employee performance, attitude, just so many things that are difficult to articulate, just all the impact that has.
What's Michael Coleman's etiquette on returning emails? So they're supposed to do it within 24 hours. Do you do that?
I really try to, and I stay late lots of nights just because I personally feel uncomfortable returning emails past 24 hours. But I'll tell you this, there's lots of times when I don't get there that every time I respond, I first say, sorry for the long delay.
Sure.
Or sorry for not getting to this sooner. So I usually start with an apology. If it's more than 24 hours, I usually start with an apology.
There you go. All right, Michael, we got about 2 or 3 minutes left, and of course we can go long because I own the radio station. I love you, so you can stay on as long as you want. Info at TonyCurreRadio.net, info at TonyCurreRadio.net. We have a former, they actually do work at the Jimmy Hill Mission. They asked me not to use their name, so I will not. But they said you were talking about going to a 4-day work week at the Jimmy Hill Mission. Do you have that at the Montgomery Food Bank? They want to come work for you. I will send this email to you, by the way. But they want to know, are you going to induce a 4-day work week at the Montgomery Food Bank? And a lot of people say, well, how can you do that? Because it's a food bank. People need it 7 days a week, but they need shelter as well. And you were going to pull that off. Are you going to make that happen?
Yeah, so let me tell you, it's interesting you say that. This is part of the problem solving and trying to bring people in. So historically, even though we have 35 counties, we have 12 counties that we serve, and we do that in the mornings. So we open at 6. The agencies start coming at 7. They've already pre-ordered all their food, and we serve 20 agencies a day. Those are churches or 501c3s, so 20 a day, come up to lunch, and then we spend the afternoons getting ready for the next day, staging the food. But for whatever reason, I don't know how we got there, but they weren't serving agencies on Friday. So the most we could serve is 80 agencies and have 80 appointments in a week. So, and so they worked 6 a.m. till 4 p.m, and for an hour off for lunch. So I told them, but on Fridays they only went 6 to 10. So I said, no, we have to start serving agencies. And so what I suggested was, I said, no, we can go to 4-day weeks, but what you'd have to do is have half your warehouse crew go Monday to Thursday, and the other half go Tuesday through Friday. So you're going to be running smaller crews on Mondays and Fridays, but you have everybody on Tuesday through Thursday. That way you could be open 5 days. And so I gave that to Kurre. He says, I've already mentioned Kurre's name. And he went out and he came back and said, Michael, you got to understand, a lot of these guys still need time on Fridays. They've gotten used to going out and paying their bills and doing those kind of things. And of course, I bank online, so I don't even think about that as being an issue. But I said, okay, well, what's the solution? And he had brought me back a solution. And the solution was, we need to be open at least till lunch on Fridays. So he said the guys want to cut a half hour off their schedule. Instead of 4, leave at 3:30, and that gives 2 more hours, and then 30 minutes a day for Monday through Thursday, and transfer those 2 hours to Friday and go 10 to 12. And that way we can serve 20 agencies on Friday. And so I asked him some questions. I said, well, will we be ready on Monday for staging? And he said, yes, I've already thought about this. And he walked me through, and I said, sounds good. So I got what I wanted, which was serving agencies. We got 20 more agencies to serve over the course of a month. That's 80 more appointments that we've got. So people are going to get more food, more flexibility for agencies. But Kurre and his guys got exactly what they wanted. So I could have said, no, this is how I want to do it. Or I could say, here's a problem. Here's a solution I have. But if you have something that works better for your guys that meets their needs, come back and talk to me. And we did, and we settled it. And we've not heard one complaint. And now we're open up and better serving our agencies and getting more food to people.
There you go. Michael, as always, fantastic show. All right, I sent you that story about way stations, so we'll get into that. I'm really interested to see. There's so many different ways we can go there, because it almost sounds like it almost feels like overkill a little bit, because I'm sure you have 18 to 24-year-olds that you had at the Jimmy Hill Mission. What makes this organization different? And I'd love to hear you break that down. So we'll do that on the next Mission Minded. Again, Mission Minded runs every single Monday through Friday. I believe that starts on Monday, all the way Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. So anytime you want to tune into TKR on one of our unique programs that we absolutely love. Michael, have yourself a wonderful week, great weekend, whatever day it is for you, and I greatly appreciate your time and effort, man.
You as well, brother. I thoroughly enjoyed it as always.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.